pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chairman of School Board, would you mind leading us in the invocation? Walking Deacon Divine.
Yes, sir. No problem. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this day. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for this council that is before us today. We thank you for invoking your presence today. We ask that the meeting today be fruitful, that whatever comes out of it is what it is. We ask you to bless each of these leaders in their different capacities as they serve this community and as they go to do your will in your way every day. And then, Father, we thank you for the staff that serves this great community as well. We thank you for what they do each and every day, Father. And again, bless each of us, Lord. And as we leave this place never from your sight, we always give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. Those who are blessed says amen.
Amen. Obviously, we have asked for very special prayers for the McDowell family, and Reverend McDowell is in the loss of his mother. We will have her celebration of life on Thursday morning. All right, Madam City Manager.
We'd ask for any public input related to the items on the agenda as outlined.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
All right, and sorry, I want to add the following matters to the executive session. Item 35, receipt of legal advice related to matters covered by attorney-client privilege under South Carolina State Statute 30-44-70A2, Extreme Risk Protection Orders, Gun-Free School Zone Act of 1990, and I'd also like to add a hate intimidation ordinance as well. All right. Hate. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move the previous question. The clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman, Mr. Bedora, Mr. Duval,
Aye.
Ms. Devine, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye. All right.
At this time, we would ask council to approve the consent agenda items 2 through 22 with a slight amendment to item number 4, adding the language that the contract for professional services would apply to outreach to those 80% and below the population for employment skills.
All right. With that minor amendment, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moving second. Discussion. Move the previous question. Clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman. Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Bedora, Ms. Devine, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye. I inadvertently skipped over the approval of the minutes. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 21st, 2019 City Council meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll move the previous question. Clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman. Aye. Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Bedora, Ms. Devine, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye. All right. It's an honor on behalf of our city leaders and the wonderful community development staff that Gloria Saeed so ably leads to accept the John A. Sasso National Community Development Week Award presented to our city in June 21st of this year in Jacksonville, Florida. A big deal. I had the honor of hosting our Mayor's Innovation Project in town this past weekend, and so often you kind of forget how special our folks are, and one by one, department after department, Gloria did a fantastic job, but seeing your folks up against the best of the best around the country helps you realize how exceptional our staff is. So thank you, Gloria. Can I represent it to you again? I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Let's come get it. Come on.
Come on. All of you. Come on. Come on, everybody.
So on behalf of City Council, I also have a brief special award. It's amazing how time flies. 5 years we've been blessed with the sage advice of Teresa Knox, our Chief Legal Counsel, who just left the room somewhere apparently.
She surprised you.
And I just looked up. I won't say nice things about her again, not twice. Come back, Teresa. Let's go to item number 24.
Ordinance number 2019-022, amending the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 2, Administration, add Article 7, Conviction and Wage History, Prohibition in City Employment and by City Contractors.
Move
and city
approval.
vendors.
Is there a second? Discussion. Move the previous question. Clerk call roll.
Mr. Rickman. Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Mr. Vine. Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye. And thank you all so much.
Ordinance is first reading, item 25, ordinance number 2019-043, amending the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 23, Utilities and Engineering, Article 1, in general, Section 23-1, civil penalties for violations related to wastewater collection and treatment or water treatment and distribution, Article 4, wastewater service.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Discussion? We'll move the previous question. Clerk call roll.
Mr. Rickman. Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Mr. Vine. Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
Item 26, ordinance number 2019-057, amending the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 15, Parks and Recreation, Section 15-1, prohibited acts in the parks.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Move the previous question. Clerk call roll.
Mr. Rickman. Aye. Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Mr. Vine. Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye. Before we go into zoning planning matters, Teresa, I want to say thank you for your 5 years at the city. We hate to see you go, and I'm just joking. She's like, I'm not going anywhere. The silver pen. We're happy and thankful for your sage advice and counsel.
Gotta stay 20 to get a check.
Top levels don't get a check.
No. All right. Madam Clerk, Madam City Manager.
Moving into zoning, planning matters, first reading. Ms. Hampton's here if you have any questions.
All right. Jump right into
7 is the
27.
adoption of the Unified Development Ordinance.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move we approve first reading of the Unified Development Ordinance, and if anybody would like to read it, I brought it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Rickenman. Make sure your mic's on.
And my question do we have to pass it with 17 at this point? Because I think some of the things, and we've had this discussion with the overlay that we're working on and demolition, but there are a lot of concerns and twofold. Number one is we wanted to fix in the community character outlay so that we had a process. But when I read over this again, this kind of goes back to where we were before, and it doesn't have really a time frame. Originally, we talked about a 30-day delay to have in a community character neighborhood to look. And then I look at the criteria, and it requires just one for it to be placed on it, but for you to disprove it, you have to apply with all of them, which is disproportionate. The second part is that we didn't define it clearly like we had discussed. Distinctive characteristics in architectural design. That
Certainly
is so broad-based that anybody with any type of, could go in and just pick something. I thought we were defining this for the neighborhood, especially where it says rare type in Columbia. It should be rare type for that neighborhood, because this is specifically for a neighborhood, not citywide. I think basically items 3 through 7 are just too wide. They're not detailed enough to provide clear distinction, and it just leaves an open-end ticket. And I think we're having an issue with a house on, I think, Salute Avenue that we have this type of issue with, and some other places. So my question is can we give it first reading without 17 and make any minor changes to it after the fact?
You have two options. You can adopt it without the recommended Planning Commission changes, which was to include demolition review, so you would be adopting it without demolition review for community character neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Or it goes back to Planning Commission, because otherwise we can't change it. As we discussed at the last meeting, I was actually incorrect. Any change from the recommended code that comes to City Council has to go back to Planning Commission. So it would
But I thought you had said in the last meeting we're going to have to go back anyway. Did I misunderstand that?
No, we will be bringing you amendments to the code that have happened along the way, for instance, addressing tattoo parlors or different items that have come through while this has been set. So we will be coming back to you with those amendments. So the options, and I just want to make sure I'm clear, the code as it was in this document did not include demolition review in community character neighborhoods. So the Planning Commission made a recommendation for several revisions, trees, and there's some with bike ped, as well as including demolition review back into the community character. So the option would be to not accept that recommendation.
So let me ask it a different way. That's what I'm wondering, if we give it reading and then amend it afterwards.
It would still have to go back to Planning Commission.
Well, how do you, we're amending stuff all the time. I don't understand.
Oh, do you mean go ahead and adopt the code as it is and then come
then
back
amend
and
it?
I hear you. Yeah, and that's what we're doing with a number of other items.
I would be supportive of moving forward if we did that so that we can tweak this, but I don't think we want to delay the overall plan with us trying to really be in play by January 1, but I think we could go back and then amend that and clean this language up. I mean, there's probably 50 to 70% of the language is right. It's just those other pieces are really not detailed enough and seem to leave a lot to individual interpretation, and I don't think that's what we were trying to do. I think we were trying to nail it down more.
Okay. Mr. Duval?
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Mr. Rickman. When I asked Krista the question when the agenda first came out about this, the language is essentially the same as we have for community character now, and we're trying to protect the 13 areas that have community character districts. So, and it's not where Mr. Rickman and our committee is going to go eventually.
Right.
And so my position was we were going to move forward now and then go back when the committee is finished and put in place what the committee and the council agrees to.
May I make a clarification?
Yes.
We have 3 different parts of the code where we're talking about demolition. The ones where in the committee we've been discussing is with demolition delay. This is a demolition that's in community character, and then there is demolition of historically designated structures. So I just want to make sure that we understand that there may be differences. I think the work that's being done in the committee is instructive for all 3, but there are those 3 very different processes.
Well, 2 of them are totally overlapped. I mean, there's no way you can get around and really say that they're three. They're really two, because you got the community character, the historic, and the demolition delay are really one. I mean, if you read the language, it's specifically driven towards historic buildings.
Certainly, but it'll be two different codes. So there will still be a code for demolition review of historic structures, and then
But
there
it'll
will
be virtually the
the
same.
demo delay.
It'll be virtually the same.
And whether it's two or whether it's three, the committee can make a recommendation for amendments that this council would then have the option of adopting.
Most certainly. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear that we had these different processes. But
It's
that they,
confusing.
but they are instructive for all of them. The clarification is good for all of them.
Mr. Davis.
Just a general question regarding the timeline. You indicated that some of the tweaks or recommendations that have come by and been approved since the document was prepared, do we have an opportunity to address those before the next hearing or, again, beyond the hearing?
What
You
council-
won't, the timeline for the next hearing won't change, is that correct?
So the next reading would be at your next meeting, which if this is successful at August 20.
But they could be considered maybe the same as we're discussing regarding the character.
No, sir, those would be coming later. Those items would be coming to you probably in the fall. We would bring you a whole roster of amendments to this newly adopted
Or
code.
for
your-
consideration.
For your consideration, yes.
That's it.
And in that time, we could continue to work on this language.
Mr. Badura.
Just for clarification, there's a lot of discussion. So we made a motion and second to amend the Chapter 17 in the new zoning codes. The Chapter 17 that we had made, we brought back community character review by DDRC. We're voting on that today, but if we want to change it later on, after Mr. Rickman's committee comes with new recommendations to overhaul or to redesign the whole demolition process, we can still do that. I mean, but as of today, I don't want to take any community character protection away if we vote on this today or not. So
We have to vote on this today to keep protection in place until we can replace.
and that's what I want to make sure we're clear on.
Right, and what may be helpful is for an amended motion or something to ensure that it's clear that the recommendations made by Planning Commission are part of your adoption approval.
Right.
And that way it can be in the record that those amendments to this code you all are adopting at this time. Now, until, and it's actually May 1st is the effective date, we're still under our code we still have the same protections in place. So all that we will be doing is prospectively amending what will be effective on May 1.
So it's not going to be a surprise a month from now if somebody tears down a house in Shandon.
We're still under the current
Okay.
code that has
Great.
demolition review. Yes, sir.
All right. Any other discussion? If none, with the previous question? And you do need the motion modified? I apologize.
To be clear that
Clarification.
those recommendations for Planning Commission of amendments are part of your
Is
approval.
that
And that we reserve the right to amend those at the
Demolition.
appropriate time.
Absolutely. So it is clear that the recommendations from Planning Commission are a part of this motion, and it's also clear from council, contemporaneous with these votes, that we'll be having further discussions about future revisions before the law becomes effective. With the previous question, clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman?
Aye.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine? Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
For second reading, zoning and planning matters, amending section 17258 to allow hotels, motels, and tourist courts in neighborhood commercial districts C2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? With the previous question, clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman?
Aye.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine? Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
Moving into a period of resolutions, item 29, resolution number R 2019-064, adopting a program for temporary alternative payment of parking fines.
So moved. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, move the previous question. Clerk, call a roll.
Mr. Rickman?
For the record, I just went to Staples to buy $8 worth of school supplies to pay for the parking ticket I got yesterday.
Did you keep your receipt?
It doesn't come into effect till tomorrow, so,
I haven't paid it yet either.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura? Aye. Mr. Vine? Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
aye. So, thank you, Elle and your team. We're gonna hopefully help a whole lot of our children with their school supplies this fall. All right? Aye.
Thank you.
Item 30, resolution number R 2019-067, adopting the City of Columbia Neighborhood Traffic Control Projects Policy.
So moved.
Second.
Move to second. Ms. Devine?
Discussion?
I've certainly never given them that impression, but from what I've told them, but, yeah.
And I think part of this will address that, Councilwoman Devine, is, you know, we've had some issues recently, one where somebody said they weren't sure that a speed hump was going in front of their house or on their block. Yeah. Some of this neighborhood consultations actually addresses that they'll have to notify them now to make sure that they're aware that there'll be a sign in their yard or a speed hump in front of their house.
Well, and I think to add to that is, you know, some of the master planning that's been done by a couple of the neighborhoods have followed the boundary line, which then really doesn't curb anything. And Devereaux's an example. You got one speed hump right after there and then nothing for the rest of the stretch. And so it really is not doing anything. It's actually a waste of resources. So I think having, you know, the proper review, I think, is important. And I think you're duly noted, Ms. Devine, that ultimately we ought to have the last say so that we make sure we're coordinating with staff what makes sense and what doesn't.
You want us to redo that and bring us back? Add that one.
You just add that on.
Okay.
Let's make that amendment, early amendment to the motion, to add in language that notes that ultimate decisions of the city council.
And with that, we'll move forward on all the ones that are in waiting.
Yes, sir.
Well, 500?
Yeah.
Speaking of,
Mr. Davis?
I agree with the motion. I think one of the things we might want to do as we have those discussions, you know, I'm in about 3 discussions now with some neighborhoods, and that is one, there's no guarantee. I usually tell them that. And also, where they want them may not be appropriate because of the, you know, the due diligence that you guys have to go through.
Oh, yeah.
And also, some of their own neighbors don't want them in front of their house, and that becomes an issue.
And that's why we put language in there to that effect.
And I put it out there, so I think by us also letting them know that up front, then that saves us some headaches too.
All right.
I'll make it and accept yours. Who was
Had a
it?
motion from Mr. Rickman
Recommend.
I second it.
Yes.
and seconded by
You
Mr.
second?
Fedora.
Okay. All right.
What you always wanted to do with the neighborhood asked. Move the previous question, clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Fedora,
Aye.
Mr. Vine, Mr. Davis. Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
Item 31, resolution number R 2019-076, authorizing the city manager to execute a district office lease amendment and lease attachment between the city of Columbia and U.S. House Representative James E. Clyburn for approximately 6,818 square feet of office space known as Suite 200, 1225 Lady Street.
A motion. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Move the previous, I'm sorry, Daniel?
Just a question. I know that we're looking at relocating out of that building. Is there any lease crossover in that cause any heartburn for
Thi-
congressmen or ourselves?
This handles the heartburn for the
It is.
congressman,
I
Mr. Rickman.
couldn't find it.
We come out of the lease in June of 2020, from my memory. I was going to add that note for you all's information, and over Labor Day weekend, or shortly thereafter, we're moving out of 1225 Lady Street. Human Resources, Community Development, and Office of Business Opportunities, moving into 1401 Main, moving forward with that process. And then at your next planning retreat we've talked about, we want to go over some additional next steps with you all. But this has happened a little quicker than what we anticipated. There's an interest of another entity, strong interest to get into the building.
So we can sublet?
Yes, and the preference was not to necessarily do that, but to accommodate Congressman Clyburn's needs. That's how we're gonna have to handle it for now.
All right.
Moving into a period of appointments, if you all have
didn't
any
vote on it.
questions. I'm sorry.
We haven't voted on it.
Oh.
Move the previous
I
question,
forget, sorry.
clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. Fedora,
Aye.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Vine, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
Now moving into a period of appointments, item 32, City Center Partnership, and 33, Commercial Revolving Loan Fund. Ms. Moore and I will assist.
Move the nomination of Jason Caskey. I'm sorry, City Center Partnership, I apologize. Yeah, City Center Partnership. Is there a second? All right. Discussion? Move the previous question, clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. Fedora.
Aye.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Vine, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye. Bianca Williams. Second. Discussion. Move the previous question, clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. Duval,
Aye.
Mr. Fedora.
Aye.
Mr. Vine, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
There has been no work session today. We have one full meeting. I don't know if there are any council committee reports or referrals that any of you have.
Yes.
I know you were working to schedule the meeting for the CPAC report, but I don't recall a referral. Yeah.
I'd like to refer to the Public Safety Committee for us to explore looking into a request to South Carolina Department of Transportation to take over Kilburn Road between Beltline and Fort Jackson. I think we've exhausted every avenue to try to create a better safety atmosphere on that road through suggestions, meetings. Residents in that area have come to their wits' end, and tried to work with the delegation and everybody else and can't get anywhere. So I'd like us to explore on taking that section of Kilburn Road over from the state so that we can move forward on traffic calming and other opportunities to create a safer zone for those families. From a procedure standpoint, I thought we had to take it through the committee. If you're saying we don't, then I'm okay with that too.
Staff is doing that.
I'm for not locking it in the committee because, you know, those discussions come up regularly.
Well, look,
And with some of them, I think we can do a better job of maintenance.
I think, since we're in a little discussion, I think if you're gonna look at Kilbourne, let's maybe discuss other streets that might be, has been a problem in the past, whether to ensure or put any traffic calming devices on it, like South Kilbourne and other, or hey, I mean, there's other streets that we might be looking at. Can you make a recommendation to the committee, look at the whole major corridors or streets in the city that whether we can do it or not, or you want to take one street at a time?
I would take one at a time because it is a added expense once we take them over.
My sense is historically, we've looked at them as, I mean, kind of in the aggregate, right? I mean, as they're trying to do things. I mean, obviously, if that's the preference of council, that goes on the list, and we'll move it. But let's have a committee meeting has staff advice and council. Let's look at the more strategic role. I mean, usually.
Leave it in committee? You're saying leave it in committee, Mr.
Yeah, but you can move forward with that one. I don't care. But obviously, if there are more streets that need to be considered.
Well, there's a buyback program that DOT was in the midst of that Robert was reminding me, and we're not quite sure where we've landed on all of that as far as what we proposed. But I think putting Kilbourne in committee is fine.
Last thing I thought I heard from Missy was that that was kind of close, but I think maybe, and I mean, looking at that one is fine. I'm just wondering if the need for the committee to do it, or maybe just at a work session, let staff make a report as to where they are, what they're looking at, and then if there's additional roads other than ones they've been currently working on, then we can talk about those.
So presentation at work session rather than committee, and maybe in the interim, if there are other roads in addition to Kilburn that we need staff looking at, that come out report, and let's
I
do
think I
that.
will support a work session discussion maybe,
Let's do that.
and look at other streets at the same time.
All right, sounds like a plan. All right. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, oh, I'm sorry, are there any other?
Any other committee reports, referrals, or what have you? Seeing none, you had something else you want to say?
Yes, sir, moment of personal privilege that I intended to take at the beginning of the meeting. My apologies again for the distraction. But I have two introductions. One is Ms. Lindsay Sherbert. She's here shadowing me, so it's an interesting day to shadow me, Lindsay. You see how we have to be very fluid in this job.
FHWA?
Leadership Development Academy with the Federal Highway Administration, and I'm excited she's asked to shadow me. I don't know what else, Lindsay, you need to do to fulfill your requirement today, but thanks for being here. Yeah. And then another introduction, and I'd ask him to come forward, is Mr. Henry Simons. He is your newest Assistant City Manager over operations. Henry is a graduate of Benedict College with his master's from the University of South Carolina. He is a 15-year career professional with Palmetto Health, and we talk a lot about retaining talent in our city. I think this is a wonderful example, and I know he's really excited. I apologize to him too, but this is what you signed up for. Sometimes there's going to be lots of changes, and you got to roll with it. So Henry is here today just briefly. I really wanted you all to put your eyes on him before he starts on August 12th. His direct reports will be Jacqueline Richburg for 911 Communications, Randy Davis, Parks and Recreation, Kelvin Kiesler with General Services, and Marlon Epps with Fleet Services, and they're going to go downstairs and get to know each other for a minute, but I'm really excited. This is a wonderful hire for our city.
Henry, welcome aboard. I got a list of questions for you real quick.
So he'll see much more of you very soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Welcome, man. Teresa, Tamika?
I'm not sure how many people got an opportunity to go by there, but several of our staff members and some former staff members presented on the different panels, and my interaction with a lot of the attendees were so positive about this city. Not surprising, but it was wonderful to hear folks from other cities, especially within government, talk about our amazing city, how great our staff is, just the amenities. So the city was a big hit from a lot of folks. The mayor went on all tours with them. They toured our city. They saw several things, and it was just everything I heard was so positive. So thank you, Mayor, for continuing to open up our city and bringing in folks and for them to see how wonderful our city is. And thank you to the staff because you all did an amazing job at showcasing all the great programs that we're doing.
Mr. Davis?
I attended several events. I missed Saturday morning, which was kind of at the top of my list. But anyway, I did have an opportunity to talk with some mayors and some, I think, some staffers and other presenters. Folks are impressed with what we're doing, and they really, I think that's kind of the move nationally now. Most cities that are looking to make an economic dent is focusing on city centers and how things tend to branch out. And they seem to be impressed with what we're doing. And I got an opportunity to kind of give, maybe I think, some step-by-step things of what we've done and what we've gone through and what we've tried as a city. But a lot of them have done, and I think are currently sort of pursuing some of the same initiatives that we've done. And so it says that we're moving in the right direction, and we're kind of putting some thought to some of the things we look to do.
I want to thank Mr. Davis and Ms. Devine for attending, and Tamika presenting and moderating a panel. It started off with a real bang. Deputy Chief Kelly just killed the first panel, killed it, and it was amazing. The work being done by our police department, and again seeing validation from leaders all across the country as to how special CPD is, from historic tours to aggressive discussion around food policy and food insecurity, to getting out into Parks and Rec. Randy and his team did an excellent job of Books to Boys, Books to Girls, having people see the way we're investing in our children, our young people. I mean, from beginning to end, arts and culture, Main Street was alive and popping. First Thursdays, I mean, it was top notch all around. And again, every once in a while we get kind of insular. We like to fight over little things, and but to have folks come in from as far west as Washington State, as far north as Vermont, down to West Palm Beach, over to New Mexico, really had every corner, and also several cities from the heartland here, and to show as strongly as we did was validating. Was validating in a number of different ways. So thank you all, and thank this council for supporting the conference as well via HTAX. It was important. So thank y'all. Thank you, Tamika. All right. We have a couple citizens who signed up to speak. Dr. Jamal Miller.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council. We have a very special guest, encore guest here. This is Harold Nooney Ward from Chicago. He is internationally known for his anti-violence presentations. He has you can Google him and get all the real history. He's met you, sir, before, and some of the members of council. And he's traveling to all of our parks and recreation sites. We've been to 2 today. I'm just running him everywhere in the city to talk to the young people about anti-violence, about the need for peace. And he's very quiet, right? I was hoping maybe he would say one or two words.
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's the second time I've been here, man. The clerk didn't remember me, but I remember her. So thank y'all. It's a blessing because when we come to Chicago back and forth, they use me a lot, and it's a lot of stuff going on. Y'all doing an excellent job. I'm not just saying it. Normally I don't say that I be going against the system, but y'all doing a good job, for real. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Y'all really are.
Thank you.
And sir, I was wondering if we could get a picture too.
Yes, ma'am.
Would that be? Thank you, sir. And Mr. Davis?
All right.
It's already,
Andy.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much.
At least he's a Cubby fan. I don't know. I've never seen him do that.
The last citizen signed up to speak, Mr. David Bolton.
If great men like him read Romans 13, 1-8, it says, obey and you'll be blessed. Disobey and you'll be beat. They're put in their proper place. So if Martin Luther had taught it, if you obey the first policeman, guess what you would never need? The second policeman. And like the rapper would say, if you broke it down, he wouldn't even need a radio. And I tell people Chinese and Japanese already got it. Because try not obeying a cop in China and see what happens to you. Because I'm a child once and I grew up from a sergeant major's family and a buddy of mine in a colonel's family. He became the bureau chief of the FBI. But he told the president something, and if the president would have taught it, then that great church in Charleston probably wouldn't have had that little white killer in it, because he blamed it on somebody else, and that's what everybody does. They blame their problems on everybody else. But if teachers taught it, obey, I want a pay raise, because if distinguished men thought about it, we pay them and teachers out of the same thing, taxes. So if you obey the first, you don't need the second. And all I'd like to ask somebody to do is show live PD to freshmen, sophomores, and juniors in high school. And then ask them to write a report, 1 3-hour program. How many cops did it take to stop subject 1, subject 2, subject 3, subject 4? And then for seniors, I literally did offer $50,000 to Richland County Captain if he would get the principal to ask the seniors to write a paper, date and name, everything you know about Mr. O.J. Simpson. In the second paper, everything you know about Hutu and Tutsi. Because, ladies and distinguished gentlemen, I've offered $1,000 to kids walking the streets 2 at a time. Because the best friends I've ever had looked like the mayor, the pro tem, and this gentleman here, best man at my wedding, 45 years ago, stood up for me in San Francisco. But there's no 13th Street, 13th Avenue, 13th Place, but there were 13th in our wedding. And the judge said, I'll get a bailiff and make it 14. I said, no, thank you. But 45 years later, I'm married to my beautiful wife. And both our sons went through the school system and went through Carolina FREE. I was telling the lady back there, I paid my kids 5 for a C, 10 for a B, 20 for an A from the 3rd grade up. Because I knew straight A students go to college free. I didn't have to write the big check. But check it out. If you can have this minister read 1 to 8, it will tell you the solution. And the president asked for a solution. And that's the solution. Because these loco guys go loco because they see things repetitively going wrong when nobody will straighten them out.
All right.
But check it out and see. In 8 verses, it sets the matter straight. And I love verse 8 because it tells you don't owe anybody anything except to love, because love is the fulfillment of the law. So I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr.
I was
Bowman.
surprised to.
All right. This is the people's house. You get a
Well, listen to the Lord, because the Lord knows the answer.
All right.
That's why I'm married 45 years, because he said, what I've yoked together, let no one put apart. And ever since a fingerprint or a drop of blood proves to him and judges who you are, you got to answer to him.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Nicole, are y'all just watching, or? Nathan, we've got a student, a Boy Scout? Oh, good.
What's your name, young man?
Nathan.
All right. Come on up.
Brooks,
Come on. You're gonna earn that badge. Come on. Come on.
What should I do? Just explain what I'm doing?
What's that?
He wants to explain what he's doing.
Oh, please. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm doing the communications mail badge. It's for getting Eagle. It's a Eagle required mail badge. And I did most of it at summer camp a month ago-ish. And this is my last requirement. It's like attend a city council meeting or like a school meeting. It's like just attend a public meeting, I guess.
Good.
What'd you think?
It's
Is it interesting?
Wait.
You got a good game face at least. If it's not,
Mr. Mayor, you picked a good meeting. This is the shortest meeting we've ever had. You need to come back on the evening ones where we stay till 10 o'clock, till 11 o'clock at night.
homework. Okay. Well, keep up the great work. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Take
Thanks for
care.
coming, buddy.
Thank you.
All right.
And Brooks's dad is he's still on BPAC. Brooks's dad is one of our BPAC members, so he's still, thank you.
I just sent you some pictures. Send his mom. Your city phone. Well, thank you. Can we have a motion to go into executive session?
We need to repeat them. You already amended it. So, motion to go into executive session for receipt of legal advice relating to a pending threat and or potential claim, SC Code 34782, Rutherford v. City. Receipt of legal advice related to matters covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to 34782, Parks and Rec Foundation, tree removal policy, Forest Acres, Gills Creek debris removal, and receipt of legal advice relating to matters of 34782, again, extreme risk protection orders, gun-free school zones act of 1990, and hate intimidation ordinance.
All right. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion?
Item 36 on the back of the agenda.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Item 36, the proposed contractual arrangements.
And discussion of negotiation incident to propose contractual arrangements pursuant to 34782, banking investment services.
Apologize. Those on the next page. Moved, seconded. Move previous question. Clerk call the roll.
Mr. Rickman.
Aye.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Bedora.
Aye.
Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Mr. Davis. Mayor Benjamin.
I want to alert the public, we do not anticipate being back in public session afterwards, so unless you just really have nothing else to do, Brooks, y'all can hang out all day long, but won't be back in session. All right.
We won't be back.